Call this to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a joint committee conference on House Bill 154, message 416. So discussing concurrence request on the false voting amendments. So bill passed through the House. The Senate has offered several amendments. The House did not concur with those amendments. So what I thought this morning is we'd maybe take some testimony from folks and then work through each of the amendments. Does anybody else have any opening statements they want to start with?
No.
No? Does anybody want to speak to this bill publicly?
No.
Good morning, and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the conference committee. I'm Chuck Gray, Wyoming Secretary of State. To my left is Joe Rubino, our policy director, and also our general counsel. And I want to thank Representative Brady for bringing this bill. The intent of it is to be very clear that double voting in Wyoming and another state is illegal. And right now, the way the code reads, it's a little bit unclear in terms of voting in another state and voting in Wyoming. It's very clear intrastate, but what we're trying to fix here is the interstate issue. And then it also contains this whole thing about our office interacting with county sheriffs, whether we can request an investigation. That's sort of the second piece of this. The Senate made 5 amendments, all of which were adopted. And the Senate amendments did the following. First, the Standing Committee amendment deleted or offering to vote in the new language on page 2, line 5. Senator Larson's second reading amendment deleted or offering to vote in existing statute. Senator Hicks' second reading amendment did 2 things. First, it broke out the difference between intrastate voting and interstate voting. And second, it specified that the Secretary of State consult with county clerks prior to directing a sheriff to investigate false voting. 4, Senator Cooper's third reading amendment completely removes the language authorizing the Secretary of State to request an investigation, including deleting the Hicks' second reading amendment on the same. And 5, Senator Pearson's third reading amendment deleted then, which clarifies that a person double voting in another state in Wyoming, as well as a person voting in Wyoming and then another state, are in violation of the false voting statute. Now, getting a little bit into our commentary on these amendments, our thoughts, we believe let's start with the investigation part, which there's been a lot of focus on. Let's just get that one out of the way. It's okay, Mr. Chairman. We believe there's a role for our office to play in requesting an investigation of false voting, especially in the case of interstate double voting, in which case our office acts as the manager of the voter registration system, as well as an important line of communication with other states and secretaries of state. The Hicks Amendment on second reading is in line with the way complaints work in existing statute, having that collaboration. And we certainly like what he did on second reading and trying to get the balance right on this whole question. The larger issue, though, is on this offering to vote question. What is really detrimental in our statutes is the removal of both the new and existing language specifying that false voting in this instance includes or offering to vote. Or offering to vote essentially means attempting to vote, but without having actually voted. And or offering to vote is used throughout Title 22 to refer to instances in which a qualified elector attempts to vote. It's an important part of the infrastructure of our statutes. Deleting or offering to vote is problematic in a couple of different ways. Offering to vote, the existing language capturing attempts to vote, gets rid of any violation for someone who attempts to illegally vote twice, but before their vote is cast. And this is existing language in statute again. From a policy perspective, requiring a violation only when a vote is actually cast, as opposed to when someone attempts to illegally vote, will have unintended consequences. And if the SOS, the clerks, catch somebody before they cast their vote, removing offering to vote, if the intent is to vote twice, prevents that violation from being able to be prosecuted. Now, I understand the argument on the other side, which is that elderly individuals, somebody who makes a mistake, may have voted absentee, but then show up to vote. Understand that, but there are strong policy arguments against this approach. One, prosecutorial discretion, and that is all over the statute books, things that could be just a pure error, that it's understood in our process that prosecutors are going to engage in that analysis to understand whether there was intent there or not. And I believe that prosecutorial discretion will be engaged with if there is an accidental attempt to vote. And, candidly, it's been challenging to get prosecutions on willful violations of the election code. And so I really do believe discretion will be handled on true mistakes. Also, the intent analysis, the mens rea analysis, which Senator Nethercott talks about a lot on the floor, that's already in the books as well. In order for it to be a high misdemeanor, it has to be a knowing violation of the statute. Also, this amendment, I would say it doesn't really actually solve the problem of an accidental vote for someone who accidentally does vote in another state and then in Wyoming. If they actually cast the ballot, removing offering to vote does nothing in terms of stopping an accident from being prosecuted. Additionally, this ignores existing statutory language throughout the false voting statute that includes or offering to vote. You can look at subsections A Romanet I, A Romanet II, A Romanet III, which all include or offering to vote. Making this and this alone only have voting and not offering to vote really throws off the consistent statutory scheme. And with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if Mr. Rubino hands out the existing statute?
No, thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you'll see there in A Romanet I, you have offering to vote that isn't being touched by this statute. II isn't being touched at all in the bill. III, all of them aren't being touched, and offering to vote will remain. And so it kind of throws off that whole scheme to remove it in one of the Romanets, and then an added Romanet that is created. Also, Mr. Chairman, the majority of states surrounding Wyoming with similar statutory provisions capture offering to vote in their double voting statutes. Colorado, quote, any voter who votes more than once or having voted once offers to vote again in the state or during a federal election. Idaho, Utah, South Dakota, if you want us to read off the statutes, happy to do that. But for time, and Mr. Rubino did that research, and I thank him for that. Other states capture that offering to vote principle. And so we really like Senator Pearson's third reading amendment. That's very important. We really like Senator Hicks's second reading amendment. But we really do have some heartburn over the standing committee amendment brought by the Corporations Committee. Appreciate their work. And also Senator Larson's third reading amendment that deletes offering to vote. And we would prefer a deletion on Senator Cooper's amendment on third reading and provide for that collaboration, but keep in place that collaboration when we do have evidence of false voting, because we maintain the voter registration system. And so there's a lot that we can see. We also communicate with other states. They send cancellation notices to us when somebody is registered in their state that previously was registered in Wyoming, and vice versa. And so that communication with other states is typically done by the state's chief election official, which is the Secretary of State. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Rubino, do you have any comments? Does anyone have any questions for either of the gentlemen? No. I have one question. So, Mr. Secretary, if the secretary is removed from this current bill, what would the process be like if your office finds out there's something that needs to be investigated, how would that be handled if you can't directly do it from your office?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that I would write the clerk and the county sheriff a strongly worded letter. Mr. Chairman, I think that's how I'd play it out and probably make it known to try to raise awareness on the need for this to be looked into with all the relevant stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any other questions? Thank you. Does
Thank
anybody
you.
else in attendance want to testify on this bill today?
Chair's a little low.
Good morning. If you'd please state your name.
Marguerite Herman here for the League of Women Voters, and I wasn't prepared to receive an offer to testify. I will just say that the League want not to cast any aspersions on Secretary of State's office, but prefers to leave this to the clerk working in the county with the sheriff where the alleged violation occurred. And certainly clerks are open to get communications from the Secretary of State's office if there's information, some kind of intelligence that something has gone on. But just looking at I don't have it with me now, this statute there, is that the clerk will use his or her discretion whether to proceed, checking out inadvertent mistakes which happen, what we heard in committee. So I would just say that understanding the Secretary of State's desire to initiate, we would like to leave that in the hands of the clerk, working with the sheriff and the county prosecuting attorney.
Thank you for your testimony. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just checking, I'm not sure if you followed all of the amendments, but in the Senate, we did have an amendment that says after consultation with the county clerk. So in my mind, I believe that satisfies your, addresses your concern with the county clerk. Would you care to opine?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just think it's in consultation is kind of fuzzy. How does that work? In what order? I think I'm leaving it to clerk. And then again, Secretary of State will certainly communicate any suspicions, intelligence, whatever. And so I think the clerks will definitely consult with any information they have on the state level, local level, other states. And I just think it's cleaner to leave it with the clerk, make that authority pretty clear with the clerk.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
testimony. Does anybody else want to testify before we check online? Mr. Representative? Morning, Representative Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to make one comment on the last issue that was touched, and thank you for that clarification on the amendment too. I do think it's important with the aspect of false voting that if something is found out either by the Secretary of State or the clerks, that both are able to contact the Sheriff's Office in consultation and be able to rectify that situation on either end. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions for the representative? Good morning, Representative Brady. Thank you for being here and bringing the bill.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, committee members. As a sponsor of this, I'm Marlene Brady, representative. As a sponsor of this bill, I would acknowledge the Pearson-Hicks amendment, third reading, Amendment 2, and as well, second reading Amendment 2. Otherwise, because they strengthen the bill, otherwise that's detrimental, any other amendments are detrimental to the bill, and I would encourage you to consider these two amendments only. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the Representative Brady? So Representative Brady, sorry, I have one quick question. So the Hicks third reading amendment number 1, page 2, lines 8 through 14, delete entirely? With your testimony, were you okay with that?
No, that's part of this one.
Okay, so mine reads a little bit different then.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I got you.
Just an
Thank you.
extension.
Okay,
This one.
Are we good?
okay. Question clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have anybody online?
Those are the two amendments.
Okay, perfect. All right, committee, we have nobody online. Procedure now is, this is my first time getting to lead one of these, so
Mine too.
is the procedures go through amendment by amendment? Or what have you found most efficient to work the bill?
Mr. Chairman, it's up to you. I think what I would normally do is just ask the Senate, what are the ones that they think they really need or live with or can live with, and what they think that they can pass in their chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I honestly, I know that we're supposed to stand by what our body decided. I agree with the sponsor of this bill that the two amendments that she recommended strengthen the bill. The other ones, I think it's not good to be taking or offering to vote out of a current statute and changing all of that when that wording is clearly in there in other places. I don't know what kind of support we're gonna have on this. At the end of the day, I voted no on this bill because of the amendments. And so honestly, I don't know why I was selected to chair this committee, because I was a no vote at the end of the day, and I'm a co-sponsor on this bill. And so I don't know what will happen in the Senate. I mean, I don't know how to rectify it.
So, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman, maybe I'll suggest this. How about we start with the amendments I think everyone can likely agree on, which is second reading amendment number 2 from the Senate and third reading amendment number 2 from the Senate. Is that correct?
Thank you, Representative Yen, and that's what I have, so I think, why don't we go through those first two amendments first, and then we'll talk about the other ones that might be a little bit more contentious, so.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, the second reading amendment number 2 was about splitting up the text from Romanet 4 to Romanet 4 and Romanet 5, where it would read voting more than once in a Wyoming election, and then Romanet 5 would be voting in any other state and voting in Wyoming for the same federal election. So that incorporates the third reading amendment number 2 as well, if that makes sense to everybody.
Thank you, Representative Yen. So procedure on this then is, do we take a vote or further comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think Representative Yin is saying is would probably move those as an amendment to what is the introduced version. And is that accurate? So I don't want to make.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion. So for now, starting off of the introduced version, I'll move that the conference committee adopt second reading number 2 and third reading number 2.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on that amendment? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that amendment has passed. So that's second reading amendment number 2. And third reading number 2? Okay, sounds good. Any problems with that, moving both? All right, thank you. Both of those amendments have been moved and accepted.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator?
Yes, and I believe the other two, or the rest of the amendments, the bulk of the amendments weaken the bill substantially enough that I was almost a no vote. So I would move that we delete those amendments, the rest of the amendments.
Any further discussion on those?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Representative?
Yeah, so even though, I mean, I would say I support third reading amendment number 1, but the House position wasn't included, so I'll stick with the House position, and if you guys don't want that Senate position, then I'll support that for the conference committee.
Any further discussion? It has been moved and seconded that we remove the other amendments that were brought forth by the Senate. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That has been adopted as well, so. Thank you, committee. So we have accepted 2 of the Senate's amendments. The rest we have agreed upon that would be not accepted.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the good work of the committee. I believe now it's the prerogative of the chairman to, since you were the non-concurrence body, you will take our recommendations to staff to be drafted and then bring us a signature page to sign off on our agreement. And then it can go back to both chambers for approval or disapproval.
So, Mr. Chairman, and maybe staff, I think normally we take a final motion, a final vote on the entire report. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, so I think it's just a voice vote, if you want to call it. I move that we adopt the report as amended.
Second that.
Second. It's moved and seconded that we adopt the report as amended. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That has passed as well. Committee, thank you for your work. Everyone, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for letting me chair my first meeting, so.
Nice job, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairwoman. We appreciate it.